Capitol Hill for us today. Adding to that, Goldman Sachs out with some new numbers saying that tax refunds are indeed coming in roughly the same as last year. You know, we have all kinds of studies as we watch the data come in. Sometimes they're up, sometimes they're down. Goldman says about the same. National Taxpayers Union senior fellow Mattie Duppler is our guest now. And maybe we could just start with the simple part about this, Mattie, and just how Americans are treating or have for years treated their tax refunds and whether people just need to rethink that.
Yeah, you know, at the beginning of the tax season, we heard a lot, especially from Democrats, about tax refunds being down early on in the season. And a lot of Democrats were conflating that, saying that your tax liability as a result was lower. Your tax refund has nothing to do with your tax liability. In fact, we know that 90% of middle-class taxpayers got a tax cut as a result of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. So those people have been better off all year long. Now, the fact that their refund may have been lower, especially at the beginning of tax season, is a result of them not giving an interest-free loan to the government for the entire year. In fact, that's a lot better situation to be in. I would rather have the average American have that money in their pocket rather than letting the government confiscate it for the better part of a year.
So what do you say to someone who you know, is not a sophisticated investor, say, for example, and makes the argument, and I think it actually is a logical argument. They say to themselves, you know what, I'm going to give this, as you say it, and it's exactly what it is a interest-free loan to the government. I'm going to let them hang on to my money. Because if they don't, you know what, I'll just spend it. So I want to make sure that, and people think this way all the time.
That's true.
And they say, if the government holds on to it, at least I won't spend it. I'll get it back, and then I can, you know, pay down my credit cards or go on a trip or whatever the case may be. What do you say to the people who make that argument?
There are plenty of savings vehicles out there that Americans could use that would give you a better return on that money. Even if it was 1/10 of a percentage point, it would be better than what you're getting back from the government, which is giving you zero interest on that money that you're giving to the government. So we do need to have a conversation about more financial literacy and preparing Americans to save those pennies more rather than relying on the government to take that money from you for the better part of a year.
Maybe that's what this will spark, because we've done stories every week on it. Like I said, one time one group's saying it's up, one group's saying the refunds are down. Now Goldman says about the same. Maybe people will rethink this finally about whether it's a good idea to kind of strategize for a tax refund and you know, hear people like you.
Yeah, you heard a lot from House Republicans about Tax Reform 2.0 last year after the initial tax reform bill was passed. And in that package would have been savings vehicles that would have opened up even more opportunities for Americans to hold on to pre-tax dollars and create more opportunities for them to save without having to rely on the government taking their money for the better part of a year. So I certainly hope there are more opportunities on the horizons for Americans to do that.
Legit question, though, about the effect it has on the economy, because whether people should do it or not, if they are doing it and then we'll see how the numbers work out, but if they don't get as big of a refund, it could, you know, have an impact on growth, say.
Well, and something to look at with these numbers, Treasury starts reporting these numbers every week, telling us how the tax filing season is progressing. The tax filing season was slowed down because of the shutdown, so we're still about 2 million returns shorter now than we would have been at this time last year. But as a result of that, a lot of the refunds that go out the door were delayed, but the IRS is actually not allowed to release the bulk of refunds until February 15th, which is why you didn't see a lot of those numbers start to improve and get us back on pace with refunds from last year until last week when people started seeing that money in their bank accounts.
Good stuff as always, Mattie. Thank you. Mattie Duppler on taxes. We'll come back, talk about the markets. Well, off the lows. Interesting given the China news. We'll talk about it when we return.